Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the April 5th, 2023 meeting of the Murfreesboro Planning Commission. We'll call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum present tonight. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes of the March 15th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Had a chance to review those ahead of time. Did anybody have any additions or corrections for those minutes?
If not, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public hearings. We have 4 public hearings tonight. I'll go ahead and mention on the public hearings because we got several people here tonight. Thank y'all for coming out on this stormy evening. But when we call the public hearing that you're interested in speaking about, you will come to the podium and state your name and address. And then we'll give you 3 minutes to make your comments about the item in question. You can speak for or against the item that we're discussing. If you have questions, we'll make note of all the questions as you all speak. And then at the end of all the speakers, we'll address the questions as opposed to stopping on each one along the way. We do ask that you make any comments and questions that you have directly to the Planning Commission and not to other members of the audience, not to the developers. This is for our discussion back and forth. You can only come to the podium and speak one time. You cannot ask additional questions from your chair after that point. So try to think about everything you want to ask us about or mention and get that done in your 3 minutes when you come to the podium. So with that, with our 4 public hearings tonight, the first one is a zoning application for approximately 22 acres located along Windland Drive to be rezoned from RM12 to PRD. It's the Murph PRD, and Eastman Residential is the applicant. Good evening, Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Chair Jones, Commission. As you know, this particular project, if you look on the aerial drawing above, is a pre-existing apartment complex of 216 existing dwelling units. Of those dwelling units, a good number predominantly are 4-bedroom, 4-bath student-type housing setups. And so previously they had looked at a site plan that you all reviewed within their existing density of their existing RM12 district, and were able to take offline those 4-bedroom, 4-bath units into 1, 2s, or 3-bedroom units, which are broken out on page 2 of the staff report. We tried to make it a little bit easier for you all to read how the project was changing, and we will be getting a staff report from the applicant as well. There we go. Well, I can't find the attachment. So it was provided in your staff report how it was broken down because they're looking at doing phase 2 of their project, which would further break down those 4-bedroom, 4-bath units that are in the complex. They needed a zone change. So the only thing that they're asking for in their plan development is for additional what we call units per acre. That would take them to 14.19 units per acre versus the existing RM12, which would only allow for 12 units to the acre. However, this is all being done within the existing footprints, no addition to footprints at all on this particular building, and then they will be upgrading amenities, parking, paving, facilities that have been kind of in disrepair. So with that, I will turn it over to, I believe Clyde Roundtree is speaking. There we go. On behalf of the applicant, that will go over what is included in the project.
And I think one thing that Mr. Roundtree is going to point out is that with this modification of the existing apartment complex, they're actually reducing the total number of bedrooms by 96 and reducing the total number of bathrooms by 96 as well.
Thank you, Holly. Chairwoman Jones, Commissioners, my name is Clyde Roundtree, Levelson Steel Engineering. And as Matthew mentioned, this is that bifurcation gymnastics where you actually increase the amount of units but have less residents because you're taking the 4-bedroom units, which are really catered towards college housing, and you're taking those and breaking them into 2s and 3s and 1s. So this is the third one I've worked on. And so it's interesting because and what they're ultimately doing and what they've found, and I think the market's bearing, is that because of the way Murfreesboro MTSU housing's been developed around the campus, there's a lot of room for rent, 4-bedroom type of units. And we've learned about those. One person rents them, scares off the other 3. Only one person's paying rent for a 4-bedroom. And next thing you know, there's no more income on the facility, and the facility starts going down, maintenance starts getting rough, and then the facility goes in that death spiral they've spoken about before. So this developer has already developed 2 other communities in Murfreesboro, and this is the third that they're coming in and working on. And that's really their goal. They're going to transition it from student housing with a 4-bedroom rent-for-room kind of composition to a family-style type of apartment complex. And some of the things they're doing from an amenity standpoint that's important to note, that kind of solidifies the point that it's moving towards a different direction. A lot of their energy outside of going towards the 4 bedrooms reduced into 3s and 2s and 1s, they're also enhancing the amenities. They're adding pickleball, they're adding a play area, they're expanding the dog park, they're expanding upgrading the clubhouse, they're reworking the pool area, adding more landscape buffering. So there's a lot of elements that really are lending itself towards family versus towards college. And I did receive one phone call about this project, and it was primarily related to pool parties and amplification from the pool. And that really, that issue is going to be addressed as well. Basically, a beautiful thing about this particular property, they've got 5 staff. 3 of the staff live on property. They do encourage them with some financial incentive, but they're still paying to live there. So it's one of those kind of projects where you've got in-house staff living on the property. There's also a police officer that lives on the property. He's not designated as, kind of patrolling the area, but some of the things that are really positive for an apartment to move around and turn a corner are in place with this particular building. I'm here just to answer any questions you may have. Generally speaking, the presentation is pretty straightforward. Let me see, Holly. Let me see if I can get this thing to move. What's that? I'm sorry. Yeah, so as far as some existing photos, they are doing some enhancements. There's very little outside improvements on the facility itself. When they're redoing the 4 bedrooms, they're also moving towards low-flow toilets, low-flow sinks, low-flow showers, low-flow washer and dryer. So knowing, the particular intricacies of the sewer allocation, they wanted to be sensitive to that. So that's one of the upgrades they're doing in the facility. They're also upgrading all the kitchens, moving towards more of a granite countertop, stainless steel appliances. So they are retrofitting a lot of the interior work, not really doing much on the exterior. That's important to note. Michael Pickelsheimer is here from the architectural standpoint if you want any clarification on exactly how the units will be broken down from a 4-bedroom into a 3 or 2 or 1. But as far as the overview is concerned, a lot of the outside improvements really relate just to making it look better maintained, cleaning up the existing shrubbery, making sure any of the existing buildings, if there's siding damage, they're repairing it. If there's touch-up paint that needs to be done, if gutters are damaged, they're replacing them. So they're doing a lot aesthetically to make sure that the building is in pretty good shape. This building had gone through some remodeling a few years ago, so it wasn't in really bad shape aesthetically. It was just the fact that it was still oriented towards college housing, and that's what kind of drew their interest in on how to retrofit that. Overall, as Holly mentioned, Phase 1 has already been approved from a site plan standpoint. That's for the initial 4 bedrooms were being converted. The Phase 2 is what we're moving into with this PUD to allow us to retrofit those buildings. As Holly mentioned, the density is going to increase because we are increasing the unit count, although the population overall will go down. As mentioned, the improvements are they're taking out a basketball court that was kind of in poor shape and moving that into a playground area. They're expanding another playground area. They're expanding the dog park. They're enhancing the pool area. They're basically taking one tennis court down and putting in 2 pickleball courts, as well as retrofitting one of the tennis courts. Landscaping-wise, there's a lot of existing landscaping around the perimeter, but they're going to enhance that landscaping along the perimeter where they need it to one of the adjacent properties. They're adding some shade trees, adding some screening around the pool area, primarily enhancing some landscaping at the entrance and doing some foundation planting at the sales center. And this is the bifurcation element. I don't want to get into too much detail, but if you do have detail about how the units are going to break down, Mr. Picklesheimer's here to walk you through that. And with that in mind, I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you for allowing us to present to you, Murph.
Thank you, Mr. Roundtree. Any questions for Mr. Roundtree before we, are we going to hear from Mr. Picklesheimer, or just if we have questions?
If you have any questions, Michael's more than willing to come up.
Okay. All right. Okay. Questions?
Just one. Why the change? Well, I know why the change from PCD or from RM12 to PCD, but why not? Why did you ask? Why are you asking it now? Why wasn't it asked originally?
Originally, when it was zoned originally, or just as of late?
When the first time it came through, you said this is the second. This is phase 2, so you already had to have approval for 1.
Yeah, this is unique, Warren, in the fact that we had, they were entitled, based on the zoning that was currently available, to go ahead and begin the project.
Okay.
So that helped them kind of be able to move forward with the first 48 units to go ahead and
Okay.
start that process. And then the rezoning kicked into gear when we went over the allowable RM12 kind of density.
Understood then. So your first phase was done with the current zoning. The
Correct,
second phase, you're saying you didn't have to ask in the original one, so now you're asking in this one.
correct.
So it
Exactly.
takes it over. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got it. Takes a while, but I'll catch up.
Good question. Good question. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roundtree.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, then we will open the public hearing on this matter and ask if anybody is here to speak on this tonight. If you come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and make any comments you have, either for or against this application. Nobody here for this one tonight? Okay, don't want to leave anybody out. All right, we'll close the public hearing and ask for other questions or comments from the planning commission. Concerns?
None from me.
If not, I mean, I think it's right in line with what we've been doing, so it'll help the sewer allocation. I think it's a pretty good project, so
Yeah.
from that, if no further questions, I'll move for approval to set a public hearing.
Second.
This is our.
This is a public hearing.
I mean,
this is-
move for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that was a unanimous vote. Okay. All right. Very good. We'll move on to item 2. Section B, zoning application for approximately 17.98 acres located along East Northfield Boulevard and North Tennessee Boulevard to be rezoned from CF to PRD. It is Northfield Acres PRD 14.7 acres and PCD, which is Northfield Acres PCD, which is 3.28 acres. Hari and Smith Contractors, Inc. is the applicant. And Ms. Smith.
Hello again, Chair Jones and Commission. This particular project, if you look on the aerial map on your overhead screen, is located in the northwesterly corner of North Tennessee and East Northfield Boulevard. The parcel actually spans over North Tennessee Boulevard, so that small area to the blue to the right of the screen is actually part of the entire parcel and is currently zone CF. As you can see there, the application, they are looking at those areas in blue to be gone to a PRD with single-family detached and single-family attached units, and then PCD for commercial on the corner portion of the lot. In your program book, there are really 3 particular exhibits that the developer will be walking you through, and I really just want to highlight those areas that the applicant is not going to be covering. So in your staff report, we did provide looking at the adjacent subdivisions, condominium, townhomes, duplexes, and apartments in proximity to the project, and those ranged between 5.32 acres for Brookwood Point. Next one up was Forest Oaks, were both at about 6.36 units to the acre. The Retreat at Northwoods was at 7.69 units to the acre. And then the Preserve, which you may have previously known as the Point at Raiders Campus, that used to be student housing, its current allocation for density is at 19.98 units to the acre. The current project proposal, without that wetland area that's on the opposite side of North Tennessee, with what we would call developable acres, that is 14.70, and with those 77 residential units equates to 5.81 units to the acre, which is less than all of the densities of the surrounding neighborhoods. In looking at our general plan for this particular project, it is currently a neighborhood commercial use. Here we go. As seen in this depiction is out of our proposed land use map that is currently under review by the commission and the council. And both the new proposed general plan and the existing general plan have this designated as a neighborhood commercial use. In looking at the characteristics for that particular zone district, the existing policy shows a compatible zone districts: CL, which is local commercial, CF, which is our commercial fringe, CMR, CM, and CMRS 8. Whereas our new general plan kind of limits the RS 8 component and really looks at PCD or a PUD, and then CF, office general, and CM, which is commercial medical. So in looking at those current general plan designations, they do look at recommended development types, and the updated plan are the same as the existing plan, with the exception of it does have a statement that talks about drive-throughs are discouraged, but potentially could be allowed if they are integrated into the design to not be prominent. And then furthermore, it talks about new transition policies in that new general plan that may be considered. There's about 6 or 8 of them, and we believe the ones that may apply is some unique geographical environments. This site, close to the street, has a water section that kind of breaks through it and then connects over to the wetlands. So it creates some interesting segmentation from a drainage standpoint that we see. Secondly, when we're looking at it, the entire commercial fringe today of the developable acreage is about 16.5 acres, which is a pretty good size commercial development site that has been designated that for over 20 years and has not designated that because of some of those terrain issues, as well as it's just a very large site to be developed all commercial fringe. And then third, it does state that lots on the periphery should be sized consistent with the existing lots of adjacent city neighborhoods, and that's why staff looked at the densities of the adjacent neighborhoods to see, is it very similar in those styles. As you saw in the staff report, there were originally 4 items that staff still had outstanding with the applicant. First was regarding types of fencing within and through the development. Kind of please land on one choice, so they have done that, and they've incorporated 4-inch solid with a 4-foot solid opaque fence on the lower section and a lattice type structure on the top 2 feet, which would be similar to the Northwoods development to the north of the project. They have agreed to include a larger gazebo that could fit more like 20 people for their interior site because of the amount of persons that would be utilizing that. Thirdly, if a drive-through type facility is something that would be incorporated, that we set a specific location for those speaker boxes to be furthest away from their residential development. And the last one, which we did not agree upon, was if there was a potential gas station, could there be limitation on the hours of operation? I think they currently had some limitation, but staff was looking, could there be consideration to be closed from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. so that you don't have the side effects from the other adjacent properties. But with that, that covers some of the high-level items on staff's side of it. The applicant will be sharing a PowerPoint and also providing some additional exhibits within that PowerPoint as they have been answering some questions from the community as myself. As we mentioned last time, there was a neighborhood meeting that we had about, I would say, 40 or so people come out to, and we handed out our business cards as well as the applicant. So the applicant has talked to several, and I believe they will be going over those specifics on it, and I'm sure I'm missing something, but we will come back around to that and let the applicant explain their project more thoroughly.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Chair Lady Jones, members of the Planning Commission, I'm Matt Taylor of SEC. I'm accompanied tonight by the applicants, my clients, Mr. Tommy Smith, and as well as Horian Smith, the applicants on the project. So they have owned the property for, I think, going on 30 years. It was a piece of a larger tract at one time. And as Ms. Smith said, this particular piece of property, as well as where Brookwood Point is, were both zone commercial fringe, had been for quite some time, and just had no activity. And so we started looking at this project with staff probably 12 or 18 months ago. We agree there are some still commercially viable pieces of this land, but think that it's just too much commercial fringe, and so that's how we come to the plan that you see here. And so we have termed this, or called it, Northfield Acres. Do have a brief presentation over this. As Ms. Smith said, it is about 18 acres at the intersection of North Tennessee and Northfield. So North Tennessee would be the blue line that you see here, and Northfield would be the yellow. As you can see, the property is heavily wooded today. It generally drains from west to east before it crosses under North Tennessee Boulevard. The site is pretty well surrounded by utilities on along both of those roadways as well. Today, the site is on commercial fringe. We are surrounded by residential pretty much on all four sides. We have PRDs to the north, as well as RM16 to the south and west. Those are a mixture of townhomes as well as apartment projects. Give a little context in the site. So the upper left-hand picture here is actually kind of standing at the property line with Forest Oaks. You can see this large drainage swell that enters our property and continues through to North Tennessee. We would be, there had been some concern at the neighborhood meeting about us damming that up. We will have a system of pipes and swells and ditches and culverts on our project that will continue to follow roughly the same path that this does today. So we have to accept the water from upstream. We wouldn't, the city wouldn't let us dam up that water. So that will continue forward. We had quite a bit of conversation at the neighborhood meeting about that, and have had several emails since. The picture in the upper right-hand corner is standing in the Brookwood Points Road, entrance road, and looking into the site. So both of those top pictures there show you the dense trees on the site today. The middle picture is of the apartments directly to the west and northwest. And then on the bottom we have Forest Oaks in the bottom left, and then the newest project in the area is Brookwood Point in that bottom right. Site itself, we have proposed for a mixture of PRD and PCD to give assurances on what's going to be constructed here and what would be allowed here. The PRD portion allows for 77 homes to be constructed, and then the commercial is about 3.3 acres. We think that will likely get broken up into 2 commercial out parcels, but we don't have any definitive users today. We have presented some conceptual site plans inside the book just to give an idea of how those could develop, but again, we don't have definitive users. If we did, those would already be built because we have that commercial zoning today. We're very excited about the project. We think this lets us design a complete project, integrated, provide some amenities and some of these uses and services to the area, while also providing high quality housing in this area as well. The 77 homes will be split between 40 attached and 37 detached. The attached are focused around the perimeter of the property, while the detached are located to the internal piece of the project. We think this fits in very well with some of the city's vision on the mixed form housing with the form of our attached and how it's integrated between that and the detached all together. We've tried to do all this while providing over 30% open space. We'll have adequate lighting throughout while also not intruding on our neighbors. We've made the commitment to follow the GDO lighting standards with this project. We also have visitor parking spread conveniently throughout the residential portion of this project. That will not be available for the commercial pieces. Those will have to park themselves on site. So the detached, shown here in the light brown, maybe a little too light, but on the internal piece of the project, we took some inspiration from the Tuscany project. We didn't copy it. We just took some inspiration from there. My client has created some very attractive homes. Anybody that buys in here, be happy to call one of these their house. Some things that we've tried to do is create a consistent material palette. So all the homes will use brick, stone, fiber cement. We'll use a couple of different roofing materials. That'd be shingles or standing seam metal roof, as well as utilizing decorative garage doors. All these homes will have 2-car garages. They will be set up on an HPR, so they'll own their footprint. Nothing outside the streets will be private. Our garages, we will not have any protruding garages. We'll utilize multiple building elevations throughout, so you won't have that repetition. You'll have interest along each one. We'll also vary up the colors. And then each home will have a patio on the rear with an optional fenced-in area behind their house. Here's some examples of those home types. I think you'll see that they're very attractive, create a very cozy, quaint feel. You see a lot of different elevations, a lot of different detail. And this is an example of our enhanced side elevation. We will, anywhere where we front on a street, we don't want that to just be a blank wall, and so they've brought out those windows or boxed those out. Here's another option. It's the exact same elevation, except for they've just treated it in different fashion. So again, we're not having that repetition even on the side elevation. The attached, it'll use a similar material palette and similar colors, but it will have its own characteristics. I think this is, at least any project I've been associated with, this is a new form. This is a brand new concept that I have not seen in Murfreesboro. Each of these attached will have 5 units, and they've really been designed as one, to appear as one big house if you're looking at it from the roadside. So I think the client has done an excellent job working with his architect and with staff to develop these. I hope you will agree with that. Each of these will have rear garages. The fronts along North Tennessee and Northfield Boulevard will have front porches that face out toward those. Our setback along North Tennessee will be 20 feet. We did want to bring that in a little closer, try to create that aesthetic, that street edge, maybe even slow some traffic down through there. And then we also, but along Northfield Boulevard, we wanted to try to maintain the same front setback that Forest Oaks has, and so we've pushed those back to 35 feet. Same architecture, just back 15 feet further. And so this would be the front elevation that's going to face the public roads. You can see the stacked porches, all the varying roof lines, how they've mixed up the materials across the front. This will be the side. They continue to vary their roof line, have different materials, a lot of detail around their windows. This is the other side. They've introduced another porch along this side, a lot of windows, a lot of dormers. And then this is the rear. It is a rear load alley, rear load garage. Again, it's very attractive, even though it is just a garage. It's a very attractive view from this side as well. Each one of these will be one-car garage as well. And this is a perspective, lets you see those breaks, those in and outs, those different elevations a little better than the 2D versions. I think it's very attractive. I think we'll be very satisfied with this once it's built in the field. And then because these are a little different, I did want to go through the floor plan. So the bottom left is the first floor, and then the upper right is the top floor. And so we've color-coded the units with their respective garages. So each individual unit will have a dedicated garage whenever they buy that. Commercial buildings, again, we don't have any specific tenants here. We have set forth standards that any tenant in the future will have to comply with. And so it'll guarantee the uses, it'll guarantee the form, it'll guarantee the quality. So we've done this at quite a few other places in town. I think we've had good results. All these features and architectural features and landscape features on the commercial are pulled almost exclusively from the design guidelines. I think those are very effective in what they do. So some of the things are defined entryways, multiple building planes. We have restricted our building height to 42 feet. We've committed to building accent lighting, and we want that consistent architecture. And then we want to bring some of those materials from the residential, that brick and stone over, along with that, those roof materials. If we do have a gas station, we've committed to that canopy meeting the GDO requirements from an architectural perspective. And so we did, like I said earlier, we did give some just kind of placeholder on concept plan, so you had something to look at. And so we'll have interconnectivity between these sites. We know where the access on the Northfield Boulevard is going to be. We know that we're not going to have a access right out next to the signal on North Tennessee. These will interconnect back with the residential portions. These will have buffers and fences where they abut the residential as well. And so we've set forth those standards. If either one of these sites has a drive-through, then that speaker box is going to have to be on the east side of the building. That way that noise is pointed away from our residents. So we've made that commitment. And so, and then some examples of what the architecture could be. This is from out in our gateway. This is a very recent vet clinic out off Veterans Parkway. This is a gas station out in our gateway. And this is an example of the type of gasoline canopy if we were to have a gas station user come here. You can see the brick columns, the roof line architecture. So those are the things that people are going to have to comply with. They're already set forth in the PUD. Our landscape design, we have again committed it to a type D buffer with a fence between the commercial and residential. We've also committed to a fence between us and Forest Oaks. That was something that came out of the neighborhood meeting. We will have foundation plantings, whether it's on the residential homes or on the commercial. Every one of them will have foundation plantings. Any signs will be landscaped, of course. We will landscape any of our mechanical or trash or stormwater areas. And then the past three projects, the apartments, the two townhouse projects on the north side of North Tennessee have kind of set a tone with the fencing and landscaping along North Tennessee. So we're going to continue that same trend with our side as well. And this is kind of just that exhibit outline and all that. So the dark blue would be where that 3-rail fence and landscaping is to match the other projects. And then the yellow would be the type D buffer between the residential and commercial. The light blue on the bottom left would be that fence between us and Forest Oaks. And then the red would be at least a 3-foot berm raised along North Tennessee to screen that stormwater area. It's just a sample palette of the type of trees we would use around the site. Obviously, the two on the left would be in our tree or our perimeter plantings and create some aesthetic interest. And then the bottom right would be in our screening around dumpsters and ponds. The top right is that example of that fence that Holly talked about, or Ms. Smith talked about earlier. Amenity design, we have tried to spread these around the site, disperse them so that they're convenient to all of our residents. We've also targeted them, selected those amenities for who we think is going to buy here, which is going to be young professionals or a older empty nester. And we've also, you'll see, is a strong connectivity on the pedestrian side between each of these, not only with our sidewalks along private streets, but internal in those open spaces. We've got walking trails committed there as well. And so really got those broken into 3 different areas. So in the red would be a gazebo and some cornhole boards. In the left portion of the yellow box, we'll have some walking trails, some seating areas, as well as grilling stations and a fire pit. And then over to the right, we'll have our pet park, our pickleball, as well as fire pit, seating areas, and some more grilling stations, all connected through that walking trail system. Here's just some example pictures. The top left is the larger gazebo that Ms. Smith was talking about earlier that we will integrate into the design. The others are some examples of those other amenities. Allowable uses, a full list of the allowable uses is in the booklet that you have. I think something important to note is we're not asking for any uses that are not allowed there today. And so if it's on that list, it could be built today. Matter of fact, we've taken some uses off that could be built there today. And so we've done nothing but make the commercial part more restrictive than it is today. I think something else to point out is probably that this list is almost identical to the list that we had at the Northfield and Sulphur Springs project that we approved a couple years ago. I think the only difference is we're not allowing a liquor store here, and a liquor store was part of that project. So it's much more restrictive than that even. Again, these are centered toward being neighborhood services to bring amenities to the area. So things like weight loss services, restaurants, financial services, banks, a gas station, things like that is what we've restricted these uses to. And then I think that a resident had questioned whether we had the right today to build a gas station in the CF. So the CF does put some distance requirements from a gas station to a PRD portion of another development. And so this is that 200-foot offset from the property line. As you can see, this portion right here actually touches into the Brookwood Point PRD. That is all protected wetlands. The units and the houses themselves are actually up here. And so we could build that gas station today. I would just have to slide it that way 50 or 75 feet. So we could build a gas station to there today, but we did want to point that out and show that exhibit. And again, if any drive-through, regardless of which parcel it comes on, that speaker box will have to be located on the east side of that building. Then access, we have 2 points of access onto each road. We've coordinated those very heavily with staff. All of those points will interconnect with each other. All of our streets here will be private. They'll be maintained by the Owners Association. All of our streets in the residential portion will have sidewalks on both sides as well. And then the commercial components, those that the connection to North Tennessee as well as the connection to Northfield both will come with the first commercial development, regardless of whether it's the eastern or the western parcel that develops first. And then we did host a neighborhood meeting, as Ms. Smith said. It was very well attended. I thought we had a lot of good dialogue. We made a few revisions coming out of that meeting. One was the fence that I mentioned earlier. We also moved pickleball court. It was more up along North Tennessee Boulevard. Some residents in Brookwood Point asked us to move that, so we moved that back toward the commercial and more internal to the project. We also talked quite a bit about drainage at that meeting. I've shared additional emails with one or two citizens or residents that were concerned about that. I think that we had satisfied that concern. If not, I'm happy to go over that in more detail as well. One thing I did not mention during the presentation is we do have a commitment in the book to not sell to a bulk rental developer, so like an American Homes for Rent. We are building these to sell to owners, and so that commitment is inside the book. It's the same language we've used on several projects previously, so I think that's been successful. So I'll be happy to answer any questions now or after the hearing.
Can I just ask regarding the rental restriction?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you're doing it in the book recently is the way you've done that, and that has been successful. Is it also in the deed when you do that, or?
So I don't know if we put it in the deed for that because it's us selling. I think it's purely a zoning criteria, and so if we were to go do that, it would be a zoning violation, and it would.
Subject to zoning?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Other questions for Mr. Taylor before we open the public hearing?
I bet Mr. Taylor wishes my flight was delayed.
Uh-oh.
I love you, Matt. I'll wait till after the public hearing, though.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. So we will open the public hearing for this item. And again, we'll ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and remind everyone, since I know we've got a lot of people that'd like to speak, that we have 3 minutes. And please make all your comments to the Planning Commission. Good evening.
Yes, Chair Jones and the Commission. I am Elizabeth Abernathy. I live in Forest Oaks 2, 1140 East Northfield Boulevard. I'm a retired MTSU accounting professor. Forest Oaks 2 residents are very concerned that the 4 proposed entrances to the residential development will have very negative impacts on traffic density and traffic safety. In particular, one of the proposed entrances will be on North Tennessee on a curve, and we think that's just asking for accidents. I do want to thank Mr. Taylor very much for his prompt replies to my emails since our informational meetings, especially regarding the fence proposed between the new development Forest Oaks 2 and his explanations of how drainage will be handled. Our Joanna Medlin, the association president for Forest Oaks 2, will elaborate further on our concerns about traffic.
Good
My
evening.
name is Joanna Medlin. I'm currently the president of the board at Forest Oaks 2, 1130 East Northfield Boulevard. One of my concerns, first and foremost, is infrastructure. And I don't know what kind of streets you all live on, but I think each of you ought to take a trip over there in the mornings and in the late afternoon and see what that traffic's like. It is out of control. And we've asked the police, but there's no way to control it much, even with them. That's one of the biggest concerns. At one point, Forest Oaks 1 came in front of the board and asked to put gates on theirs. and it wasn't allowed because of the traffic that it would back up down Northfield. So I'd like to know what the difference would be in doing it this way and doing what they wanted to do. But there's wrecks, the water builds up on the street, there's no drainage out on Northfield close to us, and there's been several wrecks out there, especially the last big rain that we had. It was tremendous. The water, it didn't have anywhere to go, and they were going backwards down Northfield. So there's several issues over there with the traffic and the drainage even on the street. So I wish somebody would go take a look at some of that and just see what we're talking about. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Chairwoman and Commissioners, thank you for having us here. My name is Mike Hensley. I live in Brookwood Point, 1103 Flagfin Lane. And I think the residential development is a fairly good idea. It's well designed and structurally looks very well. But my two concerns are also with traffic on North Tennessee and the entrances that they're proposing. It could be a problem. I know that Alexander Boulevard has traffic speed abatement, which could help, but still the volume of traffic is going to be much, much higher than what it is right now. The other concern that I have is I'm not sure what commercial restrictions you have on a gas station at that corner. But we have several gas stations within a mile already of this location. So that would be my only other concern is, can we have some kind of restriction on a gas station? The commercial development part, I think it's a great idea as far as small service type of, establishments coming in there. But a gas station would almost take that entire corner. I don't see how that would be feasible. So that's my only concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Hensley.
Good evening. My name is Harold Van Patten. I live at 1114 Javelin Lane in Brookwood Point. My primary concern is with traffic again. The entrance to the new development would be directly across from the entrance to Brookwood Point. And right now, that entrance is very close to a curve on Tennessee Boulevard in both directions, actually. And the traffic tends to go very fast there. There's a 30-mile speed limit, but I don't think it's observed. And with adding the 77 units or so, or whatever it's going to be with the new development, along with the apartment complex that is the reserve just west of Brookwood Point and the new development, which has 346 units and 2 cars for each unit are available. Right now, that is under renovation and is mostly vacant. There are very few units rented right now. When that's filled, plus adding the new 77 units or however many it is, I think it could be a problem trying to pull out, particularly if you want to make a left turn. And I think something should be considered. There's a stoplight right now at Northfield and Tennessee Boulevard. So a stoplight probably is not reasonable, but perhaps a 4-way stop could be considered at that at the entrances to the 2 developments. I also would like to see if there would be a way to restrict a gas station. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Patten.
Hello. My name is Debbie. I'm going to read because I have quite a few points to make.
Okay.
But my name is Debbie, and I live at Brookwood Point, 1117 Javelin Lane.
And what was your name?
Debbie Johnson.
Debbie
Johnson.
Johnson. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So I have reviewed the plan book and the staff comments document, and I don't support the plan as outlined. In regards to the PRD, I understand that the plan book is only a concept design at this time, and that the changes may need to be made to the actual design. But as listed, the proposed plan identifies the 2 entrances that most folks have already mentioned. One is less than ideal, the one that is right across the street from our entrance and exit out of Brookwood Point. The other is that very dangerous crux of a curb. It has a blind spot, and that could potentially make for many accidents turning into and out of the development from that entrance. In regards to the PRD and PCD alignment, on page 6 of the staff report, the sale or distribution of gasoline requires a 200-foot setback as measured between the CF and sensitive land zone properties. The concept design notes that there's only a 170-foot setback from the residential unit, not the property line. The property line between the PRD and the PCD is depicted on page 7. It is misleading to highlight that the setback exception is only 170 feet when the point of measurement for the calculation crosses into that sensitive land property. This distinction is important and should be considered. Also on page 6 of that staff report, the drive-through use requires a 200-foot setback as measured from the closest part of the drive-up window, including the queuing lanes for the sensitive land. The concept design notes a 100-foot setback from the closest residential unit on one side and only 142 feet from the closest residential unit on the other side. The setback exceptions are measured from the units and not the property line. It is misleading to highlight the exception as 100 feet and 142 feet, respectively, when the point of measurement is not based on the existing zoning ordinance of sensitive land. The setback variance would even be greater than what is documented if it was defined by the existing zoning ordinance, and that distinction should also be considered. In regards to the PCD, the plan highlights the proposed build of a convenience store with an accompanying gas station as one use on the PCD. There's a number of negative impacts if it's used as planned. Not only would a gas station result in increased traffic congestion and traffic hazards from tankers and other vehicles, but it would also increase air pollution from the toxic chemicals that get released during the storage and fueling of gasoline. Number 2, according to statistics released by the FBI for data in 2020, convenience stores accounted for over 20,000 incidents of violent crimes, and gas stations accounted for almost 12,000 incidents. That makes convenience stores and gas stations the 4th and 7th most common location for violent crime. Equally, if not more important, having a gas station so close to residential homes creates a significant health risk for nearby residents. Studies have shown that living in close proximity to a gas station is linked to higher respiratory problems, lung, brain, and kidney damage from exposure to the gas liquid and fumes, toxic soils, and possible increases in cancer. We don't need a gas station at that location. Though Tennessee doesn't limit the number of gas stations in a given area, and someone else has already mentioned this, there are 4 gas stations serving the area located within 1.5 miles on either side of Tennessee Boulevard and Northfield Boulevard. Based on the comments in the department recommendation section on page 9 of the staff report, they list reasons for supporting the rezoning request specifically as it relates to PCD, and those comments are misleading. For one, it states that the commercial component will serve the local neighborhood needs while prohibiting potential problematic uses. For reasons already mentioned, building a gas station is not what we need, and it does not prohibit potential problematic uses. If anything, it will increase traffic, it'll increase crime, it'll pose a significant health risk to the residents in our community, especially if you allow for those setback distance exceptions. Second, it states that less traffic impacts are expected with a mixture of uses. They've not completed a traffic impact study to support that expected conclusion, especially as it relates to the other potential land uses. More so, their current PCD concept design includes building of a convenience store and a gas station, which will significantly increase the amount of traffic that passes through than compared to its current use. I'm not opposed to a planned development. One done right, it will add value to the neighborhood, it beautifies the community, it provides needed services, and it's generally a win-win for everyone, but this is not the plan. Development plans that require exceptions, that's a red flag. Development plans that expose residents of the community to toxic and harmful chemicals, that's a red flag. Department plans that infringe on the enjoyment and quality of life due to adverse health risks, that's a red flag. And development plans that will likely result in increased crime and pollution, that's a red flag. So I urge the Planning Commission to not recommend the zoning application based on the proposed land use as listed in the plan book and in the corresponding staff report document. Thank you.
No clapping. No clapping. All it does is extend the meeting, so we won't clap or boo, or anything else. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, next, come on.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to express my point of view regarding this project. My name's Thomas Davis, and I live at 1118 Javelin Lane in Brookwood Point Homeowners Association. And I agree with everything that's been said regarding the gas station. When I heard about that, possibility of a gas station on the corner of Northfield and Tennessee Boulevard, I found that to be alarming, given all the residential properties surrounding that intersection at Northfield and North Tennessee Boulevard, with the exception of the southwest corner of the retail area there. Everything else is residential. Our property is residential. Across the street from Northfield is all residential, and points north, points south, points east. So I'm not sure a gas station would be a good idea. I would be totally opposed to that. The other thing with the traffic, I agree with the traffic situation. But I'm looking at it more from a pedestrian point of view. I'm a walker. I'd walk for exercise, and North Tennessee Boulevard is utilized by a lot of people right now, walking their dogs, getting their exercise, etc. And that's potentially going to increase with the residential properties that's in the plan. And of all the things that they could put there, I'm happy to see it's residential because it's consistent with everything else in that area. So having more people around isn't a bad thing, but I would hope that the city will provide adequate protection for the pedestrians in that area. And I might add that John Pittard Elementary School, as well as the Oakland schools, use Half Moon Way at North Tennessee Boulevard as a bus stop. And I know in our community, there's three school-age kids that live in there, one of which is my 10-year-old daughter, and she uses that bus stop every day. And so with the additional residences coming into that area, the potential for more people using that bus stop is going to increase. So hopefully there's going to be provisions for crosswalks and protection for pedestrians as the traffic increases on that boulevard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Davis. Who's next? Anybody else? Okay. We'll close the public hearing, and we will try to address some questions here. And I don't know if staff wants to start on any of them, or if you want to let the Planning Commission kind of ask you a few of them that we're most concerned about.
There was just one that I needed to clarify because it has been brought up several times, and we did look at it with our traffic division. Let me go to that exhibit. Okay, so this particular exhibit, you'll notice there's an access point here, and there was mentioned regarding a concern about its location. Normally, the location would be here, so that the commercial use would actually have access to North Tennessee as well as Northfield, and this was a more concerning issue for our traffic division, and so it was put back further away from the intersection, which allows for a clearer line of sight as you're looking left. And then our traffic division always looks at lining up access points directly across from another, so you do not have what's called left conflicts, where you're turning lefts into the adjacent person. They have them lined up across, so that's occurring here. And then down at this location, it's directly across from the adjacent driveway on the opposite side of Northfield, as is here. So those are some of the reasons why Traffic Division looked at those particular locations in and around the site. So I just wanted to clarify.
Ms. Smith, so can I just ask then, on the very first access point that we were looking at, and it does give a clearer point looking left, but what about looking back right if they're trying to make a left turn?
My understanding, and I can follow up with our traffic division further, but my understanding is this location, and I think Matt started working with him one-on-one at the very beginning and may be able to further.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Smith. These, Matt Taylor of SEC, if you see these yellow kind of triangles here, those were the site triangles. And so we worked with the traffic department, Mr. Balachandra, Mr. Fazig, to pick out these locations to make sure that, hey, we're going to pull any landscaping that we have back out of those and that we can see and have the adequate sight distance through there. That's how that location was picked out. We had originally proposed here. We started looking at that sight distance. We just couldn't make that work. You're having to look over your left shoulder, and it was not a safe condition. So that's why it got moved to where it did.
And it needs that access there as opposed to where you're coming out the end and then cutting back to North Tennessee. I mean, I realize that's not
You mean
the best, but yes.
this? We were wanting this to try to minimize the amount of commercial traffic that was doing that. Ideally, we would have had it here and not had that drive, Ms. Jones, but did not feel like we could safely do that right there.
I agree with that.
Was there any thought of a right in, right out there?
At this location? We've not evaluated a right in, right out at that location. And I don't know that, I'm not seeing that's necessarily a negative, except for anybody that does want to go left, we would be forcing them back that way.
Yeah, I mean, they got to get to the gas station. Hey, Matt, I'm sorry. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not familiar with the site, the yellow triangles. Can you explain the yellow triangles to me?
Sure. So on every site that we do, every one of these driveways, we will basically say that wherever your car is sitting, and then based on the speed of the road, you have to be able to see a certain distance. And then you got to make sure there's no obstructions inside of that distance. And so that's called the site triangle. So you're just making sure there's no obstructions and that you can see without having to turn back over your shoulder to do that.
So on the yellow, the side triangle at the exit next to the detention pond, is that saying that, is that considered good visibility if someone's coming?
It is considered adequate by AASHTO, by engineering standards. And so we look back, the zoning ordinance outlays something, the engineering standards also based on the speed of North Tennessee Boulevard. And so there would be, I think North Tennessee Boulevard and Northfield are two different speeds. There'd be two different sight distances required there.
So if someone turns off of East Northfield Boulevard, turns left onto North Tennessee Boulevard, they're coming around that curb, does that triangle indicate, does that point of that triangle indicate where the visibility point is if someone's turning out of the neighborhood?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. And what it is, so if this person pulls out, it's a calculation of how long it takes this person that's coming up North Tennessee to stop, is what that is in relation to.
I feel like I'm in geometry class. Is that isosceles triangle?
No,
I was kidding, Matt.
they should all be right triangles.
Can we do a right in, right out? You want to agree on something?
What happens if somebody goes, I mean, that's a long way to go down the road to realize that you can't turn left. And then do you have to, I mean, I realize they'll just cross over the island and turn.
So I
left.
think the concern here is probably the left motion.
Yes.
That's my.
So would you be okay if we restrict the left motion? We allow a left in, we allow a right out, we just don't allow a left out.
That's okay.
And you'd have to put a lot of good signage as you leave the commercial property that says right turn
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know,
I think
on-
we would look at some signage back here
Mm-hmm.
if somebody was trying to turn left right there. I think we could certainly do that.
Okay, yes, that sounds really good in theory, but I can't picture, how do you restrict someone from, how can someone turn left in but not left out? Because I'm thinking over on Fortress where
It's-
we have the right ins, right out.
Half a pork chop.
Well, that's a big picture.
And so essentially this, and you're going to make somebody do that.
Gotcha.
And a raised island.
Yes, ma'am.
They
It-
can't
Yes,
easily
ma'am.
drive.
That would all be raised concrete. It would all have good signage, and we could even do some preceding signage down in this area to say no left. We could certainly do that.
So we're good with that? We can do that?
Yes, ma'am.
I live the neighborhood, so I think the biggest challenge that the residents have is this is based on everybody driving the speed limit, right? For that tight triangle?
So the engineering standards do build in, I think it's a 5-mile-an-hour buffer. You know, I'm not going to say there's not people that break that, but,
Yeah.
you know, doing this right here will take care of that site triangle. So we've got no problem doing that.
Yeah, I think the real challenge is if you drive that curve, it is hard to see around it.
It is. I go fast on that curve.
And even with the site triangle, if we're assuming that people are going to speed limit, most of the time, at least when the apartments were the kids, nobody went the speed limit down that. So we are introducing a hazard if we are banking on everybody running the speed limit. We need to really, if we don't do the right end, no left turn out, then we need to figure out some traffic calming on this street, because if we're banking on people driving the speed limit, that is not going to happen on that curve, because you're coming off of the light and they punch it as soon as you go around the curve.
We'll take out the left turn. That we'll make it a right out only, and then allow the lefts in. But we'll take that out. That is not a problem.
I know you mentioned that you originally wanted to do the entrance where the red line is here, the property line between the PRD and PCD, but you said it wouldn't make sense just because it would be too dangerous. Would that create kind of what we have at Northfield and that road I take to go to the chiropractor every morning? You know that road, Matt?
I have no idea where you go to the chiropractor.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it would just be too. We really can't put the entrance there, really.
No, I mean, my livelihood depends on my stamp, and so I would not do it. After we evaluated it, that is way more unsafe there than it is up here.
I will agree.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, because coming the other way around that curve, you have no control of those cars going in, and they're slamming
Okay, I
on
guess
brakes
that's
when
true.
they get to the stoplight.
I forgot roads go both ways, Warren. I'm sorry. No, that does make sense.
Okay, is that everybody, as far as the access points in and out, is that the main concerns? And do we feel good about that potential resolution?
I'm good with that resolution on the access point.
Yes, me too.
I think the main other thing we need to talk about is the gas station.
Can I ask a couple more questions about the residential portion? We said raised, yes on raised sidewalks in the residential portion, Matt?
Yes, I mean, obviously along driveways, it would have to be flush, but the rest of that would be raised sidewalks everywhere.
To clarify, you mean along the driveway it's flush and then it raises again and then it goes flush again for the next driveway?
Yes, except through here, because those are so close together, that would be a flush portion along the back of these, sorry. But in between the homes would be raised, yes, ma'am.
You know I hate the parking on these attached homes right here, especially because if we don't, I understand that the sidewalks have to be flush there, but if some of these units, the way we're stacking them, I guess, front and back like that, 1 and 2, I can just see people parking on the sidewalks and blocking other people's driveways, blocking emergency vehicles.
If you prefer, I could go to like a city standard rollover curb and gutter and just put the sidewalk at the back of that. Then they're all elevated off the road. I don't know that that solves what you're after though. But so all of these have room. All of these have room except for one unit to put 2 cars back to back. And so it's got, just like we would in a normal, 2 cars back to back like that. I will say the flush through these areas feels much better in the field. Otherwise it feels like a roller coaster. You're going up and down very quickly.
Anybody else?
Well, and Kathy mentioned there's a couple of things that I heard. I know, Matt, you talked about the drainage, but specifically I have seen where water backs up in the street just exactly the way they were talking about. So I'm assuming that we will help that or mitigate that.
So if I can get some detail about that about where that's happening at, then I'm happy to investigate, try to figure out what's going on. It could be some maintenance that just needs to be done. Maybe there's a pipe or something that's silted up. So, but if I can just get some idea about where that specifically, and I'll be happy to share my card, or if somebody doesn't have my email, whatever they need. So,
and then there was not a lot of discussion, but and I've already forgotten the lady's name, and I apologize for that. But she was specifically making comments about the setbacks associated with whether there was a gas station, whether with respects to the commercial use piece of property and adjacent properties. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So I think there's 2 different setbacks. So there's one in commercial fringe in regards to speaker boxes. I think you're probably very familiar with that from your time on the BZA. And so those are measured directly from the speaker box, and Mr. Blomley or Ms. Smith can correct me, and I think it's measured directly to the unit itself. And so anything that we were talking about inside of our pattern book in regards to that is for our new residents. And so any of the existing homes are well past that 200 feet from where something like that would be. And then the 200 feet from the gas station, it's different. It is measured from the property line. And so that exhibit I showed earlier, if we were to apply it to that, that 200 feet would be in the wetland of Brookwood Point. It doesn't apply to anything else except for Brookwood Point because it is zoned a PRD, even though it's still a townhouse, just like Forest Oaks is a townhouse. And so my exhibit was meant to show that if my gas station was to be right here today and you offset that, then my 200 feet would not encroach in that. And so you can build a gas station here today. And so that's what the purpose of that exhibit was, to show it is.
You can build a gas station here
yes,
today.
absolutely.
Yes. No.
So
Matt, you may have just answered my other question. Thank you for reminding me about what we talked about, because these houses will already be built directly surrounding the Squawk Box, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we believe that the residential will be the first thing to get built here. Now, something could happen next month, and that's not true, but we believe that, especially as long as this has been zone commercial and it's not developed today. We still have faith that this part is viable, whether it's this year, next year, 5 years from now, we think that is the best use of the property. And that's why we want to retain that. We worked very closely with staff about that. They felt the same way, that we needed to retain the best portions of this for the commercial. And so, yes, we think that all of this will be built. We're going to be advertising this as commercial. We'll have signs up there. I think there's signs out there today, actually. At least there was last time I drove by. And so all these people will be knowledgeable of this, of what's going on here.
But phase one of the residential will be built before the commercial?
That's our anticipation. Is, typically the residential comes first. My clients are the builders of the residential. They're not commercial builders, and so we don't have anybody lined up for those commercial. So ideally, we would go through zoning. Once we're through that, we would immediately turn around and bring a site plan back before this body for the residential portion. And so we think we'll be well ahead of the commercial.
Okay, so instead of asking a question, I'll say a concern. What about people who move into this phase one and then suddenly they realize there's a road connecting their house to a gas station? What are we going to do in the early days to make sure, I hate to say that they're aware of that, because I don't think there really is buyer beware here, but anything?
I think that it's part of our master plan as they're doing their marketing. Some of that is on, you buy something, some of that is on you to look around and see what can be built. But I think that what we've said is, hey, we'll have signs out here advertising this as commercial space. They can ask those questions. I think you've probably been in more model homes recently than I have. I'm certain that Mr. Wright has. I would assume every model home has kind of a community master plan.
Well, but will that master plan include that commercial development?
Yeah, it would be essentially what you're seeing here. We would probably get rid of this stuff on the side and just make it bigger, but it would definitely show that as commercial. My clients are not going to deceive their buyers.
And I don't think they wouldn't intentionally either. I just know from experience in this industry, and because I was a first-time home buyer once too, that I think you get excited about buying a house and then you're a little let down when you realize who your neighbors are. What about, is it possible at all to separate, and I think I may have already asked you this, Matt, I'm sorry. Can we not separate the parcels and not connect them? And that might be a Holly question.
I think the interconnectivity was, I think it was very important to the plan. It was very important in our conversations with staff because I think we wanted them interconnected.
Do we need them interconnected?
Do we need
Holly?
them?
Ms. Smith?
No, we could look at disjoining them or doing some sort of gates or something here. They wouldn't be active gates, but I think that if we're gonna, with the modifications we talked about here, the ability to do this is gonna become more important. And so, it is an integrated plan. So, it's a mixed-use plan, and whenever you move into these areas, you're anticipating being next to commercial. I think of the boulevard. You probably buy a townhouse in the boulevard to walk there. This could turn into 3J's or whatever the next name is there, that you're going over there to hang out every night.
I think I'm fine with it with the walking. I really don't mind that the parcels touch. I think my concern is the connectivity between the parcels. So if we close that entrance between the commercial and phase one, I don't think I would fight so much for a no left turn out of that, because significantly less people would be attempting to make that left turn. I guess I'm just seeing traffic backing up right there all the way down from the residential to the commercial. People are trying to leave in the morning to go to work and they can't turn out of their neighborhood because the gas station got busy because gas dropped 5 cents.
Well, and I think that part of I think that's why we want all this connectivity and the 4 outlets, because it helps disperse traffic in multiple different options. And so, if you're leaving in the morning and you, for some reason, need to turn left on North Tennessee, you're coming to that entrance. If you don't, then you're probably coming down here and gonna go there. Or if you're coming to visit and patronize a commercial business in the morning before you go to work, then you're probably going to that one. And so, but if you want to get to the signal, you're coming up here. If you just want to hang a left, if you're going back toward the center, over toward Memorial, you're just going to hang one of these. And so I think that's the importance of the interconnectivity, is to start to disperse some of that and to alleviate pressure on any one of these access points.
Would you consider removing the option to have a gas station or convenience store?
Great question, Brian.
So, I would have to talk more with my client. I know that, we think a gas station, a neighborhood type market, is a very viable potential user here. Again, we don't have anybody on the hook. We would just hate to start eliminating more uses than we have already.
Just to me, it seems like you're getting the worst of both worlds by cramming a residential with these setback cramming. It's a bad word, but you got 10-foot setbacks against a major road on the buildings. And when I think of mixed use and walking around, I would typically think of drive-through restaurant and a gas station.
Right.
Definitely the crime stuff is a big thing. I don't know if you go to other gas stations on Northfield around 10 o'clock at night. I'd hate to know that those people could walk 10 feet down the street and be at inside somebody's house in the neighborhood. So,
Yeah, I mean, and those are good points. And to put on the record here, I don't believe that we should limit the number of C-stores or gas stations in an area. I am fine generally if you wanted to exercise your right to build a gas station here and not build the residential, I would be okay with that. I guess before I heard the concerns about the crime and safety that I hadn't yet thought of, my concern is that we're at such high density already with the residential. We're at 5.3 units, and then a gas station just also seems like a really high density commercial use, both from a footprint perspective and also from like a parking and traffic perspective. I guess a 3J's or a restaurant kind of has its peak times, and it's, and it pretty much is expected when it's going to be busy, but a gas station just seems busy all the time.
and it looks marketed towards a gas station, right?
I mean, we didn't want to, it was a use, and, we're at the corner of a collector street and an arterial street, and so it does seem like a viable use. It's...
Like, I agree, a gas station would be perfect there, but not a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Around it.
I know this, my prior neighborhood had a gas station entering off of State Highway onto a collector street right outside of our neighborhood. And it was the most convenient thing on the face of the planet for people who lived in that neighborhood. And it's one of those things that when it gets built, you're going, man, this is terrible. And then you're the one that uses it every day coming in and out from work or whatever.
I don't know. I couldn't stand on your old driveway and throw a rock to hit a gas station, though.
I could throw a football to it.
You don't throw that good.
And if I could clarify about what the existing zoning will allow, it would be based upon, a gas station is permitted in the CF zone, and it would be based upon where the property line was of the gas station lot. So the way the ordinance reads now in the current zoning is that the sale or distribution of gasoline, diesel, and other fuels for motor vehicles will be permitted in this district only when developments for such are set back a minimum of 200 feet from any property zoned in the RS, RD, RSA, or PRD classifications, or the residential portion of land zoned in the PUD classification. The required distance shall be measured from property line to property line. So the, whether or not it would be allowed under the current zoning would depend upon where the proposed property line would be for the gas station lot. And So I just wanted to,
So as shown, it would not be allowed here if it was just a straight CF.
I said, I do think that Mr. Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think it's less than 200 feet from the wetland portion of Brookwood Point development. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's what I said, was we would have to, if you take that and you slide it over 50 or 75 feet, whatever it is, it's allowed today. And so, yeah, I don't know. I
But
mean,
not once you put residential right up next to it.
well, with with our plan, we could. It's others.
As a planned development.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think if he stuck to what he's allowed to do, then that's fine, but that's a lot of exceptions and stuff for something that's,
Well,
worrisome at the end.
What I'd say is anytime you start to do something different, you know, we do have exceptions. I mean, every PRD just about has exceptions. If you look, you know, at Brookwood Point, if you look at, I think this is Retreat at Northwoods or something, they have exceptions because you're creating a different design element. That's what most of our exceptions in here are about, is creating a different design, a different aesthetic, a different feel as you come through the neighborhood. But
Especially the 10-foot setback exception to the North Tennessee.
well, we've got 20 feet planned over there, not 10. And I think that's about the same setback as what Northwoods Retreat is. Whenever I'm looking here versus here, those look to be about the same. I did not do that particular townhouse project, but those look to be about the same to me. And it's a 2-story project.
I'm sorry, you're correct, 20 foot. I saw the rear of house to back of sidewalk is 10 foot versus 35.
Yeah, and those we measured if they're a public street. And so you know, whether that needs to be a variance or not, or an exception, you know, we routinely on private streets are closer than that. Sounds like maybe we need to look at the gas station use a little bit more. So, you know, maybe we just need to defer tonight and go back and evaluate that. That'll give us a chance to evaluate, you know, get this drawing updated here and look at that gas station use a little harder for you all and bring it back, if that's amenable to you all.
I think that would be good. I'll just make the comment that, and thought this at the prior meeting, you know, the look of this residential development and these 5-unit buildings, we don't have anything like that in Murfreesboro. Right. And so the look of this, the appeal of the exterior anyway of these, whether attached or detached, I think it's a great compliment to the area in and of itself, without any question. So the development plan, I think, is great. I think the consideration of just right in, right out on North Tennessee, that's an answer. Not everybody's going to like that, but it's an answer. You know, I don't know the whole gas station thing. I get it. I mean, I you know, you go less than a half a mile, you got 2 on the corner, you know, of 96 and Northfield, but it's all about what the market's going to bear, you know, from of who wants to develop that property and whether it's going to be a gas station or not. But I get it from the residents that are around it. If you can make this work and there's no gas station, then that's even better, you know, but
I agree, Ken, and I'm sorry, Matt, I really am, because the houses themselves have really grown on me. I'm in support of it being residential. I'm even supportive of it being some residential and some commercial. And I can come to terms with sidewalks and speaker boxes and parking. And we agreed on the left turn. So I think really for me, it's doing everything we can to minimize the congestion between the 2 developments and minimize the impact on the residents both inside that neighborhood and outside.
We'll go back and evaluate that and try to have something back at either hopefully the workshop in a couple of weeks. So.
And I just want to ask, and I should have found this in the plan book already, but just general in our developments like this, the attached units. I take it they have something that works in regards to the trash pickup and, you know, what we always run into with all the driveways that are all up against each other, and do you have room to put your 2 trash cans out and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to do all private trash pickup here, but we've sized those garages, well, the text is hard to read, but we've sized the garages per the city's requirement, so it ensures that we've got a place to keep the can as well as a car inside as well.
Okay. And private pickup, so no dumpsters or anything like that we're looking at. And I agree, I really was impressed when I saw the look of the buildings, especially the attached. I think they look really nice, and I do think they'll be a nice complement to the area and the other developments around it. So I think if you can work on those few things, and maybe we can iron those details out.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we need a motion?
To defer.
Motion, yes.
So moved. Motion to defer.
Second.
Motion to defer and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. We will be discussing again at an upcoming meeting. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No, I mean,
That was it.
Okay.
It's in the,
My concern.
yeah, slow down.
Other than y'all calling me out.
No, but you're right, though.
Yeah, it's
All right.
That's
Our
the reality
next
on that.
item, I think we're about ready.
It's under-speed limited.
yeah.
Is that a new word?
That's my word.
Under speed limited. Did.
Okay. Next, we have an annexation petition and plan of services for approximately 8.6 acres located along Manson Pike. Marcia Love is the applicant. Ms. Rush, good evening.
Good evening, Commission. How are you this evening? I'm going to scroll through real quick and get to the
Oh,
map.
sorry, I thought we were almost there.
Getting close. There we are. All right. Good evening. Thank you. This item is a request for annexation. Ms. Marcia Love, represented by Mr. Matt Taylor of SEC, submitted a petition requesting that her property be annexed into the city of Murfreesboro. The subject property is located along the north side of Manson Pike and southeast of Interstate 840. The property is 8.23 acres in size, and the annexation study area does include a short segment of Manson Pike, approximately 130 linear feet, and this totals then 8.63 acres for the total study area. The property, as you can see on the map, is contiguous to the city limits, both to the north along 840 and to the south along Manson Pike. There is currently a single-family residence located on this property, along with some accessory buildings. If this property was to develop, those buildings obviously would be removed for that development. Simultaneous with this application for annexation is a request to zone the property to planned institutional district, and that is to allow for the development of a charter school, 2-story, 56,000 square foot, and that will be the next item on the agenda. Within the Murfreesboro 2035 comprehensive plan, the city is currently considering a proposal to an update to the comprehensive plan. And within that proposed update, there is a service infill line that will be depicted on the future land use map. And that service infill line basically depicts the land that is the most, could facilitate growth and development in the city in an orderly and planned and sustainable manner, and this property is located within that service infill line. Staff has completed a plan of services, which was attached to your agenda for consideration. It did depict all the information from the various city departments, and city services can be provided to this property in its current state, as well as with future development. Staff does recommend approval of the annexation based upon the following reasons. The study area is contiguous with the existing city limits. The study area is within the service infill line of the proposed update to the future land use map, and city services can be provided to the subject property upon annexation. As such, the Planning Commission, we're asking you to conduct a public hearing on this item, after which to formulate a recommendation for the City Council. I'm happy to answer any of your questions relating to the annexation, as well as Mr. Taylor here as the representative. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Rush? All right. Then we will open the public hearing for this annexation petition and plan of services. If anybody would like to come forward to speak on this item, please do so. I think we kind of cleared out, so we will close the public hearing. Any questions or comments before we're ready for a motion on this item?
If there are none, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have our item D, which is the companion zoning application for approximately 8.2 acres located along Manson Pike to be zoned P&D, Rutherford Collegiate Prep P&D. This is simultaneous with annexation. Ryan Companies US Inc. is the applicant. Ms. Rush.
Thank you. Yes, as indicated, the applicant is Ryan Companies, and the school operation will be by Rethink Forward, and they are represented by Mr. Matt Taylor of SEC for this particular request. The request is to zone the property to planned institutional district, and this is to allow for a 2-story charter school for grades kindergarten through 8th grade. It can hold up to 770 students. It's a total of 56,000 square feet in size. It is located, as you can see on this aerial view, to the southeast of Interstate 840 and north of Manson Pike. The building will include 33 classrooms, a gymnasium or multipurpose room, as well as offices, restrooms, art labs, science labs for the students. The primary access is via Manson Pike, which you can see here to the south. I'm going to scroll to a site plan within the plan book. There we go. So there is one primary ingress egress into the property, as you can see to the south. It's got one lane going in with a right out and a left out exiting. There is also proposed an emergency access to the southeast corner of the property. Next door to this building, or to this property to the east, is currently a church. We do show a stub out that could possibly have a future connection. If that property was ever to develop in the rear, if the church decided to, or if the church ever decided to sell the property for something else, there is then a plan for future connectivity to that north. But unless the neighboring property ever does anything, it will not connect anything, and it'll be gated off so that there would not be any access into the property. The building design, it was also presented in the program book, and Mr. Matt Taylor will go into it in more detail. But just wanted to let you know that this is a concrete tilt-up building. It does have a brick and board inlay pattern and colors to try to emulate that. From a distance, they've used this typical approach on some of their other buildings in the country, and has been pretty successful in terms of design. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So it is something unique that we have not done here before. In the program book that was presented to the commission a couple weeks ago at the workshop, they had asked for an exception to the rear setback. And I just wanted to let everybody know that there is no longer an exception asked for with this plan development, so there are no exceptions. The future land use map does depict this as business park. The proposed future land use map that the city's reviewing right now is showing this as a general commercial. So the school is a compatible use within the business park zoning districts and general commercial zoning districts, and an institutional use is something that's consistent within these land use categories. So as such, this would be a compatible use with both the current and proposed future land use map. With that being said, staff does recommend approval of the planned unit development, and we would request that the Planning Commission open up a public hearing and discuss the matter, make a recommendation to the City Council. I'm happy to answer any questions, and likewise, Matt Taylor's here for his presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rush.
Thank you, Ms. Rush, Chair Lady Jones, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Matt Taylor from SEC. I'm also accompanied by the applicant as well as the architect and contractor here tonight. And we've got a brief presentation over Rutherford Collegiate Prep, which is one of the first, if not the first charter school, I think, to come to our community. So we're excited about that. As Ms. Rush said, we do have about an 8-acre site just to the north of Manson Pike. It's kind of formed a triangle with the adjoining 840. So Manson's shown here in red, 840 is in yellow. Today the property does have several structures, as Ms. Rush said, and the site generally drains from Manson Pike toward 840, so from south to north. We've got all of our utilities located along Manson Pike. And the site today is zoned REM out in the county, which we have requested annexation and rezoning to this planned institutional development. Some context in the area. The upper left-hand picture is of the land itself, some of those existing structures that we mentioned. The upper right-hand picture is out on Manson Pike, directly in front of the property, so the property would be directly to the right in this picture. You're looking back toward 840, that's the bridge over 840 on Manson Pike. The middle picture would be exactly opposite of that, so the property is to the left. You're looking back toward Murfreesboro proper in that picture. And then you have the church in the lower left-hand corner that is located directly to our east. And then you have the townhomes in Braxton Park, which is directly south of Manson Pike in the lower right-hand picture. The site itself, as Ms. Rush said, we've got a single building. It is a 2-story building planned. It's about 56,000 square feet in size. We would be teaching K through 8 age students here. We would not have high schoolers, so you won't have all their cars. This will be all bus and parent pickup and drop off. We plan for at least 20% open space on the site. It's much more than that with all the green. We've also planned for youth athletic and playground on the north side of the building. It's important to note that these will not be like organized sports. We won't have other teams coming here. This is purely for recess and PE times. We've also got a couple of detention ponds planned, both back along 840, so one along the west side, one along the north side. We'll adequately screen and beautify those with our construction plans. The parking lot here will be for faculty and staff, as well as some guest parking. All of it is located to the south and east of the building. And then we've got our queue spaces wrapping around 3 sides of the building on the east, north, and west that you see here. That gives us about 150 queue spaces on site. And then our bus drop-off area is at the very front of the building. We have room for I think 4 to 5 buses at that particular location. The building design, as Ms. Rush said, is I think unique to the site, but I think it's going to be very attractive. We've given it a very pronounced entryway. Those concrete panels, we're going to have a mixture of colors and textures with those. There are some real-life photos, examples of those inside of your book to show how successful the architect and contractor have implemented that in other locations. They're also still able to have quite a bit of glazing on the building, as well as a variation in roof line and building plane. So, and a lot of cornice design work on this. So a very pronounced base middle cap with this building. So this is basically the view as you drive in off Manson Pike. We have limited the height to 35 feet, which is in compliance with the surrounding residential zones. Some of that concrete detailing. And then these two views are from the other sides of the building. So the upper picture here is basically like you're standing on the athletic field looking in toward the building. And then the bottom picture is like you're standing over around the dumpster 840 area. So you can see there's really not a blank wall here. They've done a good job varying the base and roof line and building planes on all four sides of the building. Landscape design, while we're not required any buffers because we're compatible with our surrounding uses, we still want the site to be attractive, so we've planned and provided a conceptual landscape plan that'll show our perimeter plantings as well as shrubs screening our parking lot, as well as beautifying our detention ponds and screening any unsightly features like the trash enclosure or mechanical equipment. So it's just that conceptual plan. And a sample palette of shade, ornamental, and evergreens. Access, we spent quite a bit of time with staff, as with every school, access is pretty important, especially for about 30 minutes in the morning and 30 in the afternoon. And so spent a lot of time with staff on this. We've completed our traffic study. We've introduced emergency access onto Manson Pike. We don't ever want to have to use that, but if something was to happen at our main entrance, we could open that and utilize that entrance and exit point. We've also planned for a stub at our northeast corner of the development, so that if the church is ever redeveloped or developed more, we could connect into that, or they could connect onto us, and potentially we could eventually work our way back to Florence Road there if some of that redevelopment occurs.
Matt, the last item, sorry,
yes,
the drop off and pick up, the queuing, I think is great.
Yes.
The way they've done the circulation. My question would be, and this is kind of a curiosity question, but it's a planning commission question also, is that since this is not a public school, I'm sure that we will still have a school zone. Will these folks be obligated to either hire their own crossing, the folks that are, is there going to be any human being that's going to be in the middle of the road directing traffic in and out in the mornings and in the afternoon?
I think that, I don't know that we've determined that necessarily with traffic department yet. I think that we have completed that traffic study, and it's the reviewing that. Whenever, if that's part of the recommendations, that's what we'll have to implement. And so I know at some locations, I think the school has said that they have not done that and been successful, simply because it is fewer vehicles. But if that's something that traffic department wants us to do, I'm sure that we'll have to hire our own if so.
Right.
So, we might be able to train somebody on staff. So I know there's certain criteria that goes into that. So I don't know all the rules on who they will allow to get out in the street. I do know that part of our recommendations were for the school zone. It'll have to be treated. I would say this is going to be treated kind of like any of our private schools necessarily. I would throw it in that same kind of ballpark. I think PCA as well as Middle Tennessee Christian. I don't know if Franklin Road does. I can't remember if they have the school zone lights or not. So
St. Rose does as well.
Okay. And so I would imagine we're going to be treated just like each one of those are.
And the Christian school definitely has a crossing guard.
Absolutely.
She does a wonderful job.
She's
very fluid.
Her arms are almost rhythmic.
Loves it.
She does.
Loves her job.
And so this is some of that drop off and pick up. time and plan. And so all the light green and the yellow is kind of that queuing time. We'll have multiple staff members out here during those times to help direct traffic, as well as make sure the kids are safely and efficiently picked up and dropped off. Of course, our buses will be up front here. We had that traffic study also recommends right turn lanes coming from the Murfreesboro side, and then left turn lanes coming from the 840 side. And so both of those will get constructed with this. And those dark blue areas are those emergency access and those stubs that I mentioned earlier. As Ms. Rush said, no exceptions here. I think the PUD was really more to guarantee the use. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions before we open the public hearing? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We will open the public hearing. Ask anybody that would like to speak on this item to come forward. Anybody new that snuck in? Okay. We'll close the public hearing. What other questions, comments from the Planning Commission on this item? Okay.
If there are none, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much. Our next item is staff reports and other business. We do have one item tonight, at least that we know of so far, and it is a mandatory referral to consider the dedication of electric easements located on city-owned properties along North Thompson Lane, Bradeville Pike, and Searcy Street. Middle Tennessee Electric is the applicant. Roman, Mr. Ives is not here tonight.
He's not, so I have to speak.
Mr. Hankins, all right, go for it.
Thank you, Chair Jones. This mandatory referral is for several different electric easements that MTE is requesting. These are either being done in conjunction with roadway improvements, or they are assisting line system upgrades that MTE is doing for some of their projects. The exhibits that show the different easement areas have been provided as part of your agenda packet. If you need me to go through them, I can. Otherwise, I'm here for any questions that you have.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do we have any other staff reports or other business tonight?
That was all he gave me.
You can go over all of them now.
You can.
All right, thank you all very much, and we do stand adjourned.
All right.